Right then, welcome back to How to Fix United, episode 8. I think I've got about 2 more episodes left to go, although I didn't anticipate it being this many, so we'll have to see how many more it is. In this episode, I'm going to be looking at long-term football operations and financial stability, which is different to the finances and the situation that we find ourselves in, which was like episode 1 that we did. So let's look at how we marry elite performance and financial health, because to be successful, we have to do both. Now, United's ambitions have to be supported by smart and sustainable operations. When we were at our best in the late 90s and the early 2000s, we were an absolute financial powerhouse. In simple terms, we have to balance the need to win trophies with maintaining a stable financial model. And they're not exclusive. They actually need to work together, and one can reinforce the other. A well-run club that can continually invest in both the squad and facilities is a successful one. So we're starting to round into the final pillars of what we need to do to ensure success. And one of the things that we have to do is be sustainable with our finances. We can't be boom and bust. We can't be going through those cycles of outrageous Galactico spending and then penny pinching for years to try and pay for it. We have to have prudent financial planning from one season to the next, efficient squad management so we're not wasting 70, 80 million pound signings, and leveraging the commercial strength responsibly. Because United are a big club and we do have a lot of commercial pull, and we should utilise that to get the best players playing the best football out in the best stadium. That's what we have to do. Now, what we've got to do is adopt a disciplined approach to wages, in line with the modern benchmark. Now, it's kind of a widely accepted thing that keeping your wages to revenue ratio around 50 to 60% is healthy. And going above somewhere like 70% can cause trouble. At a well-resourced club like Manchester United, the aim should be to be at the lower end of the spectrum because of the financial might of the club. So somewhere around 50 to 55%. For context, a lot of the big successful clubs historically float around the 55 to 60% wages to revenue when well managed. We have to set internal targets. The wage ratio should be to not exceed 60% and actually try and aim to be more like 50-55. That prevents you falling into the sort of trap that Barcelona did recently where the wages just ballooned. You get one person, even if it's Messi, on the 2.6 million a week that he was on, and every single person in that squad can walk in and just ask for what would be the best player in every other league's sort of salary, 700, 800, 900,000 pound a week. On top of that, UEFA are looking at overhauling, and they're constantly reviewing the financial sustainability rules that are going to cap spending either on wages or transfers. And if they do that, it's going to be somewhere in the region of at most 70% of your revenue. So if you position yourselves under that, you're effectively going to sort of future-proof yourselves against any possible sanctions going up. If you're going to plan long-term, plan to be financially prudent, and you're probably not going to come short of what's going on at the football club. One way to manage the wages smartly is for performance-based incentives, bonuses. Now, United already have some structure. If we don't make the Champions League, wages drop by supposedly 20-25%. You've got to continue that. Players should earn huge money if they deliver huge success, not regardless of it. I think that's the most important thing here. We've got to structure contracts with significant bonuses for winning trophies, reaching certain rounds, a number of points accumulated in the league. That means if performance drops, the wage burden automatically eases off just a little bit, which protects the club. It's also motivating for the players, and it aligns with their interest with the club's success. A comment from one of the recent financial analyses noted that United have in some cases intentionally kept wages in check. There was a comment on a recent financial analysis which said that United looked like they might actually be intentionally keeping wages in check more recently, with United's wages around about 50%. And that's due to the clauses that reduce wages outside of the Champions League. That philosophy has to be maintained. You align that then with a smart transfer policy, both planning and valuations. financial sustainability doesn't mean not spending. It just means spending wisely and not having to buy twice. We will still invest heavily in key players. We should still be looking to compete for players in and around that upper echelon, maybe not quite world record fee, but certainly the higher level players, because that's the sort of level of player Manchester United should aspire to have. But we've got to aim for value for money as well. And that comes from having a refined and detailed recruitment strategy, which we've covered already in this series. But finding talent earlier, finding it cheaper, rather than being reactive and bringing in Galacticos when they're at their peak price. And we have to balance our signings and academy graduates because that saves money. If our academy and loan system are producing 2 and 3 first team, even if they're squad players, in every couple of years, you're saving tens and tens and tens of millions of pounds. Or you can start clumping together what you would have spent on your squad players into bringing in a marquee signing that's going to make a tangible difference and change you from being second or third into champions. That's an efficient transfer policy. I'm not sitting here saying I don't want United to be breaking records again. The best United sides have always spent money. But when I think all the way back to when we brought Roy Keane in for a British record transfer fee, but he was moulded together with the academy graduates to produce a team that, one, stayed together for years and years and years, but also had so many homegrown and cheap players in the mix with it as well. And then you can bring in your Andy Coles on £7 million, or your Dwight Yorks and Yap Stams for 10 and £12 million each. And you can make them make a difference to the team. On top of that, you're bringing in the likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for €1 million here or there, or Michael Carrick for 18 million. That's what you've got to do. Put smart money into smart signings, and you can still bring your big money signings in, but they have more of an impact because they're dealing with a better squad. We also have to optimise our transfer spending by having a multi-year squad plan, and that means anticipating contract expires and age curves. If we know that our star striker is going to be 32 in a couple of years' time, you have to start looking for his successor a couple of years into his contract rather than wait into the 4th or 5th year of his contract and panic buying as soon as his performance drops. That avoids a scenario of desperately overpaying for replacements because there's a time pressure as well. And if you bring in a player before he's expected to be peaking, maybe that's a little bit like what we've just done with Chido Obi, but if you bring in a player pre-peak, while you've got someone at their peak, you might get a longer peak because of the sustained challenge that you're going to get out of your peak striker, but also you've got someone to mentor and learn as well. And that's a positive thing. Now, yes, we would like to keep our best, and sometimes an offer is too good. But sometimes a player also wants a new challenge. If you get a big offer comes in for someone at or around their peak, if you've got a decent young player on the up and up coming in, you replicate that Dortmund approach of selling one big player per summer for a huge profit and then reinvesting that into younger players that keep the team fresh without losing competitiveness. Now, United haven't historically been a selling club, and I certainly wouldn't want us to start, but I would also have an eye on saying, do you know what? If someone comes in, smart sales aren't a weakness. They can strengthen the team if done correctly. Offloading a player that might decline soon, using the funds to buy someone on the up and up. You only have to look at Liverpool for how they literally turned the switch from being also-rans into champions because of the Coutinho money that they managed to get. They invested that smartly, and they bought a team that was capable of winning the title. You also have to have a sustainable model, meaning that you don't let assets leave for free too often. We've seen that a lot with players running their contracts down at the moment. I think there's probably an element of us allowing that to happen because of the substantial wages that those players are on. But there needs to be a bit of a policy that when a player enters the final 2 years of his contract, they're either renewed because we anticipate they're going to have value for 3, 4, 5 seasons, or we consider selling them at that point. And it's proactive rather than reactive. This way, we either retain the value or we realise the value and sell them. You do that with a bit of a close eye on the age profile, and you ensure that you always have a blend of players in their prime, a blend of youngsters, and a blend of people that are coming up to the boil. Never again should you be facing half the squad aging out all at once. I remember there was a period, I think it was while Ollie was here, there was like 12, 13 out of the starting 18, 19 players that were all in there or about to be in their last year of contract, which puts you in a horrendous situation as a football club. And rather than having strategic thought and conversations about every single player because you've got the time to do that, there was almost like a panicking, just renew everyone sort of response from the club, which was never going to be a good thing. And each year we need to plan out our budgets. And the budgets need to account for a worst case scenario. What's a worst case scenario? Well, for Manchester United, we kind of live in that worst case scenario at the moment, and that means missing out on the Champions League. That way, even in the down years, we're running at a place that's sustainable. We don't want to be operating at a burn rate that requires Champions League. We almost want it to be, this is our sustainable burn rate, and if we get Champions League, we just make more money. That way, you're not going to be fiscally gambling on something that you can't guarantee. And that's where the wage reduction helps. You're out of the Champions League, the wages are going to drop by X, but also you maintain a little bit of transfer budget flexibility. Funds not used in one window should be rolled into the next. Rather than wastefully spending out of panic, we should have plans that are sustainable, calm and confident. If you spend big one summer, maybe the next one's a little bit more modest. If you have a bit of a modest window, maybe the next one you can go a little bit bananas. We have to invest in infrastructure because that's what pays off the long-term dividends. Things like upgrading the facilities, the academy amenities, the scouting technology. They don't count towards FFP in the same way, but they can yield performance improvement, which in turn yields more revenue because of the success. And it's a virtuous circle. Success breeds commercial growth. You get more sponsors, you get a global fan base, and that breeds more investment ability. But the key to that is to avoid the negative catch-22 cycle of chasing success with unsustainable spending leading to failures and more financial strain, i.e. the last 10 years. And United's commercial strength was the envy of the world. We have to grow it back to being that. We have to be looking at finding those new markets, the innovative partnerships, possibly leveraging technology and fan engagement globally. You know, maybe the director of football is looking solely at the football side, but someone has to come and be like a director of commercial at the same time, and they have to work hand in hand. That has to be one team. You can't have the commercial side. Like, you know, we've spoken to coaches and stuff when we've been on pre-season tours, and by the sounds of the upcoming tour, it's going to be a lot more football focused than some of the previous ones have been. But there's been a commercial pressure on what is an incredibly valuable period of time. Now, one suggestion that I had is whenever there is a international tournament in the summer, World Cup or a Euros, Manchester United should have a home-based pre-season. Forget the opportunities. You're getting a couple of mil to go abroad. You get way more than that if you qualify for the Champions League. So qualify for the Champions League and forget about that extra couple of million. You win a title, that extra couple of million is going to seem like chump change. Whenever there is an international tournament, what I would have Manchester United doing is what Juventus do, which is have everybody living at the training camp. So instead of us going abroad and being in hotels on the road, build dormitories at Carrington and have the players living there. And rather than having them treating it like a 9 to 5, let's spend a month, 5-6 weeks, where all they think about is Manchester United and all they think about is winning. I don't think that's too much to ask for them. Yes, some of those lads have got families. Yes, some of those have got young kids. I don't think 6 weeks where you live at Carrington is too much to ask for how well they are financially compensated. And I think if you focused on just Manchester United for 6 weeks and you eliminated the travel that you would have if you did a tour to America and you hosted your 3 or 4 pre-season friendlies at Old Trafford, which you could sell out and you could introduce to new kids because of cheaper prices and initiatives at schools, that would be a net win for you on a football side and on a fan base side. Rather than thinking about fans 3/4 of the way across the world, try and grow yourselves in Manchester, where we have a legitimate threat to our legacy in this city. But focus on the football. Eliminate the travel and have the lads focus on the football. Have them have a pre-season where the only thing that matters is getting fit. Forget about trying to sell new sinks for Cola. Forget about trying to sell a new car for Chevrolet. Forget about whatever it is that fucking TeamViewer and all them lot do. Forget about that. Focus on the football first. Because if you are a successful football team, as Manchester City just proved, They don't have a big fan base worldwide, but they just made the most money. Why? Because they won stuff. And it's as simple as that. You have to trust that winning trophies and building a strong, cohesive team brings in fans and it brings in sponsorship organically. Yes, you can monetize smartly. Balance the preseason tours. When there isn't an international tournament, let's go abroad. Let's go to the Far East. Let's go to America. Let's go to the Middle East, wherever the money is. Monetize those things smartly, but put the football first. Proper team preparation has to be at the very forefront of what we do, not trying to sell a couple more apps or whatever it is that we're trying to do. And then you have to review all operational aspects, which is clearly what Ineos have been doing. The use of sports science might have large upfront costs, but it might save you money in the long term because it's reduced the injuries and wages for sidelined players. Also, keeping the academy well funded with the best coaches that we can find might cost you a few million, but for every player it produces, it can save you 30, 40, 50 million pound in transfer fees. That's a good investment. On the other hand, avoid having a bloated, aging squad that you can't sell, where millions are spent on players that never play or you can't sell at the end of their contract. Streamline it to a lean squad, hungry, financially rewarded with bonuses that can be versatile and financially sound and good for morale. Football's finances are changing. The new Champions League formats, probably new salary caps, luxury taxes coming down the line, a bit like we have in American sports. Those are all going to impact teams' ability to do business. You can stay ahead of that by scenario planning. Ask questions. If a wage cap comes in, are we positioned to work with that? Is our academy strong enough to provide us with 4 or 5 first-team players should we have to really cut costs and sell some of our bigger names this summer? Are those players ready to thrive in that environment? If external investment like private equity comes in and inflates the transfer market even further, do we have the pipeline to deliver players that prevent us from having to match those crazy fees? Can we have a plan that reduces our reliance on being in the transfer market and insulates us from transfer market inflation? A very, very conscious hedge that helps sustainability. And a word on fans. Because even though fans don't necessarily impact it financially to the same level as like TV money and stuff, you have to maintain goodwill by being responsible and working to be something that the fan base wants to be a part of. The European Super League fiasco showed that fans absolutely demand respect for sporting merit and integrity, and even to a certain degree tradition. If you have a sustainable model that aligns with that, you win things by doing things the right way, not by sugar daddies, not by being backed by a nation, not by this closed league, you're not in the gang mentality. You engage your fans through the forums, through the advisory boards, ensure that all operations are grounded in what supporters value. Because without fans, this is a mad enterprise. You have to have a financially transparent approach within reason, so you're not giving up competitive edge. Help fans understand. Let them feel that the club isn't being mismanaged or overly leveraged by shady owners, which we still are. Aim to operate so well that performance on the pitch and sustainability of it keeps the atmosphere positive, keeps people proud to say they're Manchester United fans. Or actually returns us to say that we're proud to be Manchester United fans. I've spoken about this so many times. When I was a kid, one of my birthdays, I got a CD player, a ghetto blaster, if you like. I don't even know what they're called now, just a CD player. And I chose a sharp one because I was all about United. And over a JVC one because that was Arsenal. 2 fucking Japanese electronic companies at the end of the day. But one supports United, so I support them. And I don't think I was on my own in that. Over the last 20 years, there's been more boycotts of people who support the Glazers than there has been any sort of desire to see those companies that align with the club succeed. And I want that to change. It won't change until the ownership does. But I still want there to be that closeness. I want to go back to feeling the love with everything I do with the football club. That's going to take a major course correction to do that. And back onto the finances. You have to track your KPIs. You have to look at your wage ratio. You have to look at your net spend versus your budget. You have to look at your revenue growth. If you see trends that are concerning, that wage ratio is creeping up, this player's been out injured for a long time, spend isn't translating into success, you have to adjust. 10-year domination doesn't mean one giant splurge and it'll figure itself out. It means smart decisions every month, every week, every quarter. Look at Bayern Munich. Rarely overspending. Strong wage structure. They pay good money and they spend good money on transfers. But they balance that, bringing in the top talent, often cheap because of good scouting or good timing, with promoting good youngsters. They don't pay one player double what everybody else earns. They avoid that internal friction by not doing that. And that's something you can learn from. And there's loads of examples of this. In the 2010s, Arsenal had to be frugal because of the stadium debt. They maintained a very strict wage structure. It just about kept them in Champions League every year on a budget. Our resources are bigger, but the principle of the structure and managing it correctly remains the same. A dominant decade will obviously have challenges, and there'll be unexpected dips. There might be catastrophic injuries to a star player. But operations that include contingencies, allowance for injuries, maintaining some level of financial buffer in case you need to go big in January, you shouldn't be caught flat-footed. And finally, accountability. That's massive in operations. If I'm on the board, if I'm a director, I want there to be reports going in all the time. How we are faring, how are we performing versus our strategy and what our plan was. And that just doesn't mean league position, because the league position can be false. But in meeting recruitment, academy milestones, financial targets, the cultural initiatives, and the fan base connection that has been sorely missing for years, that keeps everybody honest. That keeps everyone aligned with the long-term vision, because short-term results fluctuate. But we should never lose sight of what the long-term vision is. Now, we've gone over so much in these 8 episodes. Recruitment, development, financial realities, partnerships, tactics, sports science, culture, operations. Everything designed to make United the benchmark of excellence in football once again. I've got probably 2 more episodes where I want to talk about the fan base and our role in this. Each pillar supports the others. Smarter recruitment and academy development reduces financial strain. A winning culture amplifies player development, and the on-pitch success leads to commercial growth. Having cutting-edge tactics and sports science squeezes the maximum performance out of players, and well-run operations provide the platform and resources to keep it all going. The roadmap that we've set out, I'm a YouTuber. I run a team at level 13 of English football. But if I can see some of the pathway and look at things that aren't being implemented at United, and some of the things that we've covered already are, but if I can look at these, I would hope that someone at Ineos or at Manchester United right now is trying to build and adopt the most cutting edge of these ideas. AI-driven analysis, global feeder networks, cognitive training. Things that some fans just aren't familiar with, and a lot of people in the comments was like, oh my God, the game is totally dead. I'm not asking for robotic, science-based football. I want us to have a team that is prepared physically, but has got the balls and the technical ability to be creative and put that out on the pitch so we can enjoy it again. a lot of the things that I've said aren't just possible, they're incredibly realistic because they're grounded in models that already exist at other clubs or in other sports. I've cited Brighton, Ajax, Red Bull, Liverpool, the All Blacks, AC Milan, teams in the NBA. These concepts are working in practice. They're not theory, and they're not something I dreamt up on a shitter. You know, we're essentially trying to synthesize the best of global practices in one little corner of Trafford, at Carrington or at Old Trafford. If we're able to do that and find the right people and put them in the right job, I would expect in 5 years you see a squad that's starting to brim with homegrown talent, cleverly scouted stars, minimal injury downtime, a distinct United style of play that others are trying to copy, and a trophy cabinet that's starting to fill up with silverware. In 10 years, the goal would be that United aren't just winning, but people are asking how we are winning to the level that we did, setting a standard on and off the pitch. Other clubs asking to come and study that model. Sponsors, fans, players desperate to come to United and not just see a club that's got a glorious past, but one that's redefining a glorious future. The master plan is building a blueprint that allows us to achieve success in a sustainable, intelligent, United way. The people at Ineos have to put money and authority into people that are going to drive this innovation and forward thinking so everyone can pull in that direction. And I'm confident if United get that right, they can rise to the summit and they can stay there. Now, it's not my job, and I don't think I'll be getting that phone call, but I would love to see an era of innovation and success at our new stadium for now and for the long run. One more part to go, but let me know your thoughts on it so far. I'll see you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.